Buenos días. Buenos días y bienvenidos. Good morning and welcome. I am the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin. My pronouns are she, her, hers, or ella. I am one of the ministers serving this religious community, and I want to wish you a happy Father's Day to those who are celebrating. And that Father's Day includes all of you wonderful uncles and unks and coaches. And for those who are grieving today, know that you are in my thoughts, you are in my prayers, and you are held by the love of this religious community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on this life's journey, whatever your beliefs, gender identity, immigration, or documentation status, know that you are welcome here. If you're joining us for the first time today, I invite you to please raise your hand. And if you're in the chat, please let us know in the chat. We do have a gift for newcomers today. And if you've been attending for a while and you're interested in becoming a member of this religious community, I hope that you'll reach out to Nicole Singer, our membership coordinator. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of the ministry team. Kay Gottesman is here today by the Joys and Sorrows candles, and Kay is available to support you. And now for a moment of the holy announcements, second only to coffee and donuts. So we had something pretty amazing happen yesterday. It was the Poor People's Campaign rally in Washington, D.C. Can you give it up, please? And Cedar Lane had quite the showing. I really want to give a shout out to those who said yes to being in the choir: Jenny Lynn, Reverend Dana, Leslie, Kimberly, Heidi, Laura, Beverly. And I'm wondering if you were there yesterday, if you could please rise in body or spirit so we may thank you for representing our faith and our values at this important event. More than 200 Unitarian Universalists showed up yesterday. And it was an amazing crowd. We couldn't even find each other because the crowd was so big and they were locking down spaces. And I want to welcome a few more folks who are visiting with us today. The Reverend Barry Lynn, the Reverend Axel and Elaine German. You're welcome to rise or not in body or spirit. The Reverend Bruce Russell Jane and Cece Russell Jane. Y'all, Bruce and Cece are here from All Souls, Indianapolis. So can we just give everybody an extra warm welcome? How are you today, colleague?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thanks.
All right. Good morning. It is so wonderful to be gathered, and welcome to all, and especially our guests this morning. We're delighted you could join us for worship for this very special Sunday. This service, today we are sharing the plate, as we do every week, and today's Share the Plate recipient is the Young People for Progress, which is a Montgomery County-based organization that creates political power among youth and young adults in our county in order to create a more just and equitable society. Let us take a moment to watch this video to know more about their work.
Hi, I'm Grace, and I am a member of Young People for Progress, or YPP. YPP is an organization of people under 35 years old that aims to build power amongst youth and young adults in Montgomery County. We specifically focus on issue and voter education campaigns. And we've done so much since our inception in 2019. First off, we've led a successful campaign to win youth and young adults seats to the Montgomery County Policing Advisory Commission. We've held various Know Your Rights and restorative justice trainings, and we have advocated for police reform at both the state and local level. Although most of our work has been focused on police reform and accountability so far, YPP is poised to advocate for any and all issues that align with our values. And our values are social and economic justice, diversity, and solidarity. In the new year, we even hope to add mentorship programs and organizing workshops to help youth become the best organizers they can be. We believe that with adequate power and resources, young people can become disruptors and decision makers. Thank you so much for believing in us by donating today.
Thank you. Next week at 11 a.m., our service will be Won't You Be My Neighbor?
That's right.
We're going to be talking about our We Care system next week. So be ready for things to be a little bit different in the sanctuary. We're going to put everyone into their We Care neighborhoods, and you'll learn all about what that means and how you can have support in your individual neighborhoods as part of this amazing network we call Cedar Lane. And I will also be saying my Until We Meet Agains to everyone. So I really hope that I will be able to see you next week, and there'll be cake.
Among other things, next week.
What other things?
There will be a special reception following the service as we bid fond farewell to Reverend Katie Romano Griffin as she embarks on her journey to her new ministry in Indianapolis. So I hope you will be here. I will be joining you from afar, from Portland, where I am attending the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly. But it'll be a wonderful day of gathering, remembrance, celebration, and farewell.
Yes, I'm starting already.
And this morning, we are delighted, or as we say, chuffed, to welcome my dear friends and colleagues, the Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper and Emma's Revolution. Kristen and I went to seminary together at Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, where we first met, and it's been a long journey for us together and separately in our ministries. Reverend Harper currently serves the Unitarian Church of Barnstable in Massachusetts. She was called in 2002 after serving congregations in Lansing, Michigan, and Ormond Beach, Florida. And when Kristen was called to Ormond Beach, she was the second minister of African descent, second female minister of African descent to ever be called to a solo minister role at a UU congregation. And in her 20th year at Barnstable, she is the longest serving minister of color in a senior minister role at a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Kristen is an awesome preacher, and you're going to be treated to a powerful sermon this morning, so I'm setting you up.
And we are also welcoming Emma's Revolution back. That's right. Emma's Revolution is known for fearless, truth-telling lyrics and melodies that you can't resist singing. They are nationally known, award-winning activist duo. They are Pat Humphries and Sandy O, winners of the John Lennon Songwriting Contest and the Phil Ox Award. Emma's Revolution just released 2 recordings, Rooted, which features some new songs, and the majority of these were written during the pandemic. If you follow them on TikTok and YouTube, you know they're amazing, and if you don't follow them on TikTok and YouTube, you need to, just saying. And Evolution, which is a compilation of their 20 years as a performing and songwriting duo, and there is some merch outside, so as you're enjoying your coffee, stop on by.
Indeed.
Thank you. I didn't know you were pockets or something.
Well-
How did you do that?
I used to peddle things, so
Okay.
come prepared. So.
As we enter this time of reflection and remembrance, commemoration and commitment, we acknowledge that we have gathered for over 70 years on the traditional lands of the Nacotchtank people from which the name Anacostia is derived. They are a part of the Piscataway group of tribes, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have protected it throughout the generations.
We gather in remembrance of those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward.
We gather in gratitude for all who've gone before, whose labor and love and vision helped create and sustain the mission and the ministry of this religious community.
In this spirit, we gather. In this spirit, we begin. In this spirit, we worship. Come, let us greet and welcome each other in person and on the chat. Sing hymn number 153, Oh, I woke up this morning, but my mind stayed on freedom.
Oh,
we invoke the words of the poet Dr. Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky.
But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied as he opens his throat to sing.
The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom.
The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own.
But a cage bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing.
The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on a distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? My name is Rajendran. I'm the worship associate for today's service. I now invite Diane and Brian Belanga to please come forward and light the chalice. As the chalice is being lit, please share in the chat where you're lighting your chalice from. Please rise in body and or in spirit to share in unison this adapted prayer from the poet Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards excellence, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led by you into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let us all awake. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you know the story of Juneteenth? When the enslaved found out that they were free. 2 years after 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah. Freedom. What does it mean to be free? Are you born with it? Is it God-given? Or is there a cost to be free? The Constitution said we were 3/5 human. How can it be democracy built on stolen land? Freedom is a right, not a privilege. Freedom from false restrictions. Skin color, birthplace, respect the ways we're all different. Let's take it back about 100 years. Quick, let me paint this picture. America in the Civil War, no Marvel movie, this history. President Lincoln had a plan to end slavery only in the South. But black folks, when they heard about it, start spreading that word of mouth. Picked up arms and joined the Union to fight for their own freedom. The colored troops helped win the war, gave the proclamation new meaning. You better believe it. Do you know the story of Juneteenth? When the enslaved found out that they were free. 2 years after 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation.
Justice.
When have we seen it and known it? Who are the ones who have grown it? Took it from notion to showing what's up. Let's talk about soldiers who were free, risking their lives for people like me. All the camp folk they may never know. Took a lead that we all could follow. Following the call for what? Justice. Figured the land it was for the enslaved. When you think about this proclamation, the emancipation is knowing that we were the brave. 200,000 soldiers organizing, women and children home strategizing. Paid for protest, learn to address the power of truth and the culture uprising. Do you know the story of Juneteenth? When the enslaved found out that they were free. 2 years after 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. Can't stop that joy.
Freedom is not individual, it's collective.
Can't stop that joy.
Freedom is not individual, it's collective.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Freedom is not individual, it's collective. Freedom is not individual. When you think about Juneteenth, remember how we freed ourselves, how we stayed prepared. We will prevail, cause we tipping scales, closing all the jails, and we will not fail.
You believe, you dream, you move, you serve. For those who pass for our culture, no one left behind, we can be sure. We stand, we rise, we on that joy ride. We stand, we rise, we on that joy ride. We stand, we rise, we on that joy ride. We on that joy ride.
Now you know the story of Juneteenth, when the last enslaved knew that they were free. We led ourselves to victory. Victory, victory.
We enter this space made sacred by our presence and our spirits and the holy with deep gratitude. Each Sunday, we give and receive an offering to sustain the mission and ministry of this, our religious community, and in support of a community organization that is in alignment with our mission. The offering is an invitation to demonstrate willingly a commitment to the common principles and convictions expressed in our Unitarian Universalist faith. It reminds us that our congregation belongs to us, to each of us individually, and to the whole of us, and that our ministry is more than just this building, beautiful as it is. It is an extension of our gratitude for our spiritual home, where we are welcomed to be who we are, as we are, and to bless each other and the world with our gifts. As we shared earlier, our Share the Plate offering today will be going to support Young People for Progress. And there are many ways you can give at Cedar Lane. You can give by electronic means, by text, online giving, PayPal, QR code, mailing a check to the congregation, or sharing your love offering in the beautiful bronze bowl that's there in the back of the sanctuary. However you choose to give, we are grateful for your generosity and support. Our offering will now be given and received as we welcome Emma's Revolution and our awesome Cedar Lane musicians.
Thank you so much. We're so thrilled to be back here in our home state of Maryland. And as our friends, the Alphabet Rockers, said in that song, have we known freedom? When will we know freedom? We sing this song for you.
It was a long day yesterday. When will we know? 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 When will we know our dignity? For now we wait
Will we know?
and bide our time.
Will we know?
It's been too long
Will we know?
to turn
Will
around.
we know?
We've traveled far
Will we know?
to reach this
Will
place.
we know?
We'll take no
Will
less
we know?
than our dignity. For now we wait
Will we wait?
and bide our
Will
time.
we fight?
It's been too long
Feel the
to
ground
turn
trembling
around.
under world.
We've traveled far
Make the way
to reach
forward.
this place.
Justice lead.
We'll take no less
Build the way to
than
our
our
dignity.
dignity. Then we will know. 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 Then we will know our dignity. When we are
We
safe
will know.
to draw our
We
breath
will know.
and grieve the
We
loss
will know.
of those who've
We
passed.
will know.
We carry
We
forward
will know.
our elders'
We
dreams.
will know.
We carry
We
on
will know.
with our dignity. When we are in the face of where
We will fight
and
for
we
the
we are
ground.
representing.
Our
We
world
carry
forward.
our elders' dreams.
Justice lead over.
Rooted into our dignity.
We carry
Feel
forward
the perch from trees.
Justice lead over.
Rooted in our dignity.
Thank you. Thank you. For all the gifts that we bring and share to make this a beloved community of spirit, may we be grateful. We gather each week not for our needs alone, but to bear witness to the joys, sorrows, and milestones that unfold in all of our lives, and to serve as companions to one another throughout these profound journeys of faith. We gather to build a place of solace and healing, a place of welcoming and hope, a place of belonging and joy. We gather to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome and all lives are rendered whole and reconciled. In this spirit of caring, we hold in our circle those who live with loss, grief, or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, those who care for loved ones in ill health, and those whose primary spiritual practice is parenting. Within our Cedar Lane community, we celebrate with Diane and Brian Belanger, who celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary on June 16th. We hold in our hearts Raj and Sharmi Mehta and Raj's cousin Geeta, who are mourning the loss of her husband Mahendra Shah, who died on Thursday in Olney. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives are impacted by war, violence, calamities, and the COVID-19 pandemic in our nation and in our world, a pandemic that has taken over 1 million lives in our nation. May these friends of ours, our companions in the world, and all that lives unspoken in our hearts be held in the embrace of silence. As we enter the silence together, I invite those among us who are here present in person to rise in body and or in spirit, in mourning and memory, and those in the chat to share the names of loved ones that you are remembering. Let us enter the silence together. Would you join me now in the spirit of prayer? Nameless one of many names, Spirit of life that holds and helps us, that comforts and challenges us. O courageous love that will not let us go, let us down, or let us off the hook. We gather together today to commemorate Juneteenth, a celebration and a reminder. A celebration of the victory and freedom over slavery, and a reminder of the unfinished struggle to ending the living legacies of slavery. O Spirit, we are thankful for all who went before us, who resisted the evil of slavery and the human bondage in any form and any manner of oppression. We honor their dignity and courage, their faith and their hope. O Holy One, Spirit of mercy and compassion, remind us that we must remember and can never retreat. Free us from apathy and inaction. Help us remember the simple instructions to love justice, be merciful, and move humbly. Help us keep love alive as our ancestors did. Help us remember, remember that love abides and that it is love's insistent voice that we hear. Help us hold a firmer vision of how the world could work, should work, can work. Call us into action to end injustice and oppression in all its forms. O God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God who has brought us this far along the way, God who by your might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Shadowed beneath your hand, may we forever rise, true to our God, true to our native land. In the name of all that is holy and life-affirming and life-sustaining, we say, Shalom, Salam, Om Shanti, Amen, blessed be. May it be so. Please rise in body and or in spirit to sing, lift every voice and sing. number 149, the gray hymnal.
In 1452, Pope Nicholas issued a decree to King Alfonso V of Portugal that declared the inferiority of all non-Christians. According to Stephen Newcomb, a member of the Shawnee and Lenape tribes and co-founder of the Indigenous Law Institute, the king was directed to, quote, capture, vanquish, and subdue the Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ, to put them in perpetual slavery, and to take all their possessions and property. The Portuguese embraced this doctrine and spread their dominion along the western coast of Africa, accelerating the enslavement and trading of native Africans. On August 18th, 1619, a ship called the White Lion, with more than 20 enslaved African people, dropped anchor at Point Comfort. in what is now Hampton, Virginia. Those Africans had been stolen by British pirates from a Portuguese slave ship and had taken them from present-day Angola and sold them to the British colonists. These 20 enslaved Africans were the first among 12.5 million who would be kidnapped from their homes and brought in chains across the Atlantic Ocean in the largest forced migration in human history until the Second World War. Almost 2 million people did not survive the grueling journey. On the 400th anniversary of that arrival, I wrote, "How do we mark that first day, that hour, that minute? The white lion docked at the point that would be of no comfort. To the 20 enslaved Africans chained in her bowels, heralds of a coming storm of millions whose bodies would break through soil and rock to build an America that could never fully embrace its progenitors. How do we mark that day, that hour, that minute that foreshadowed the centuries to come of degradation and violence, of attempts to separate the soul and the spirit from the deep wells of Black lives? How do we mark that day, that hour, that minute 400 years ago when the first drop of African sweat commingled with the earth's warmth, planting the seeds of a new culture, a new way of life, a new heartbeat into the fabric of a new world? When the roots of freedom sparked deep underground and spread from generation to generation, blossoming into resistance and resilience, we mark it in sorrow with grief. We mark it with atonement. We mark it by naming the ghosts of those lost in the Middle Passages, lost to the whips and deprivation, lost to the lynchings and the bullets, lost to the prisons and the chains of racism. Today, we will stop and pause so that tomorrow we may ring in freedom, ring in liberation, ring in peace. Sold into physically demanding and demeaning work, enslaved Black people and their descendants turned to music for comfort. They sang while picking cotton and tobacco leaves, on long marches, on chain gangs, in prisons and in church when allowed to attend, and in secret when they were not. Formerly enslaved abolitionist Frederick Douglass wrote of his captivity, "We were remarkably buoyant, singing hymns and making joyous exclamations, almost triumphant in their tone, as if we had already reached the land of freedom and safety." Because the immediate obstacle for the multicultural captives from Africa was an inability to speak the same language, enslaved Africans came together in ceremonies of song and dance, representing a fundamentally spiritual celebration of life. Song and dance continue to be the way in which many African, African American, and Black communities affirm our relationship to the forces from which we owe our existence. The lyricals of spirituals emerged from the everyday experience of slavery. Many spoke of injustice, pain, anger, and anguish that our enslaved ancestors needed to express. In the singing of such songs, enslaved people began the transformative process of constructing methods of survival and perseverance in a life determined to dehumanize them. Through words and movement, They lifted themselves in pride and power.
What a precious moment to be left with to start a song.
Please sing with us if you'd like and feel lifted.
Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna rise. Listen to our cries through the pain and lies. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing.
In spite of everything, hear a freedom ring. Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna fight.
Our people gonna fight.
Our people gonna
Fight the word we know is right. Marching through the night. Our people gonna fight.
Our people gonna grieve.
Our people gonna grieve.
Our people gonna
Grieve. Whatever you believe, you have the right to breathe. Our people gonna grieve.
Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna
Pray. Take our rights away. See you on election day. Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
People gonna
Rise. Listen to our cries through the pain and lies. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
On June 19th, 1865, 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation, Union General Gordon Granger sailed into Galveston, Texas, the last state of the Confederacy to have institutional slavery, and announced, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them become between employer and hired laborer." It was a day of celebration, a day of possibility, a day of hope. Finally, my ancestors would be seen as fully human, have control over their bodies, their own labor, their own land. They could educate themselves and their children. They could worship out in the open. They could vote for their own representatives, and maybe they could have a chance to represent their people. Maybe they could find their families and build new communities. Maybe they could rise. As Maya Angelou wrote, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I have oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling like teardrops, weakened with my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I'll rise. Up from the past, rooted in pain, I'll rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights and terror, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. And rise they did. And the generations that followed, building homes, businesses, schools, and churches, plowing their own land, trading food and goods and services with each other and with white people. They organized to gain the right to vote. And during Reconstruction, many black men held public offices, 16 of whom served in Congress. But time and time again, they were met with violence, terror, and prejudice. But still, they worked for liberation. As South African Bishop Tutu said, liberation is costly. Even after the Lord had delivered the Israelites from Egypt, they had to travel through the desert. They had to bear the responsibilities and difficulties of freedom. Through black codes and Jim Crow, lynching and separate but not equal, through the flooding of black communities with drugs, through poverty born of white supremacy, through mass incarceration and police-sanctioned murder, the empowering history of the black community is one of perseverance, resistance, and hope, of staying the course in the face of tremendous challenge with little or no guarantee of justice. This has never stopped us. We have organized and marched and protested as our houses were burned, our churches bombed, our towns decimated. We have continued to fight in the face of hatred, fear, dehumanization, and demeaning work and living conditions for a chance to live fully and freely. We are the people of hope, hope for a new day when we will be recognized for our intrinsic worth, hope for a day when we need not fear white fragility or white power, a day where our presence and participation in the world will be celebrated and received with joy.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find that fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and you can't feel like dying, but I promise you we'll take the world to its knees and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, we'll rise. Oh, we'll rise, we'll rise. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, high like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you.
Lila Watson, an Aborigine elder, said, "If you've come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound to my liberation, then let's work together." I strongly resonate with South African concept of Ubuntu, that, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu explained, my humanity is caught up, is bound up in yours. My life is bound in your life. My liberation is bound to your liberation. That said, it is time for us to stop wringing our hands at the unbelievable injustices we are witnessing all across our country. No person, no community should be the target of hate because of the color of their skin, their history of enslavement, who they love, their gender identity, their religious choice. No person, no community should be murdered, should be incarcerated, should remain poor so that one race can feel superior. No one should be denied their liberation, their freedom of self-determination, their opportunity to raise a family in health and prosperity, their dignity and sense of worth. Today, on this 157th anniversary of Juneteenth, it is time for us to do more than just acknowledge our unity. We may have different skin colors, we may have different genders or sexual orientations, we may have different histories and different positions in society, but we are one people. And we are responsible for one another, accountable to one another, bound to one another. It isn't enough to say that we are allies, to congratulate ourselves for our acknowledgement of the end of slavery, and then tomorrow go about our business as if something was accomplished. It isn't enough to sometimes listen to the real pain, the fear, and systematic denigration, and at other times turn away, or shut down, or pretend it's not happening. It is time we truly acknowledge our interconnection, our intrinsic need for one another at a biological level, and be accomplices in the struggle for universal liberation. We must be willing to risk our comfort, risk our privilege, risk our security, to name the divisive actions and systems that divide us. It is we who must look into our own hearts and see where we are contributing, where we remain silent, where we fail to show up and fail to act. We must be willing to stick around for the long haul because Black liberation from violence, from poverty, from the ravages of climate change, the ravages of our criminal justice system, the ravages of white supremacy, our liberation from these crimes is your liberation. Today isn't just about freedom from slavery, it's about all of us. It is about what we must do. It's about the transformation we must make in order for all of us to be free. The Reverend Dr. William Barber, leader of the Poor People's Campaign, asserts, quote, "Those of us who have in our history the commonality of suffering from hate, we know that those who won the day are those who chose love in the midst of hate." So I'm asking you to choose love, not an ephemeral surface kumbaya love, but a fierce, dedicated, binding love. A love that stands in front and protects it and honors it with the full, fierce force burning within. A love that speaks out against the demeaning and negating, even when it comes from those closest to us. A love that enters into relationship across perceived divisions and over fake walls. There is a saying from the Talmud that I have always loved. Do not be daunted by the enormity of your grief. Do justice now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Let's take up this call to love and bring liberation and healing to the soul of the world. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me in our closing hymn, number 116, I'm on my way. dream of freedom, an unbound life, as one often does when life isn't your own. When other people hold the chains, the keys to the locks, the end of the ropes that bind your body, your spirit. It is not the work or the lash or the living conditions that take pieces of your soul. It is that eventually, if they're clever and you susceptible, they bind your mind. And your ability to distinguish their wants from your own diminishes, and your strength to resist their disdain fades. And your dreams of freedom, of flying untethered wherever your imagination can take you, die in a pale, uncrossable desert without water or nourishment or hope. And how can you be free while carrying the dead of those who could not make the trek, who became sacrifices for your chance at safety and self-determination? How can you truly be free when 40 years of wilderness stretch into 400? When the journey seems so long, the cost too high, and your will too broken? Is it possible, after all this time, to throw down the chains of bondage but remain bound to the silken threads of divine webbing? Is it possible, after all the hate, all the hubris, all the wrenching pain, to let go of the reins, to shed the chains, to find freedom in one another? Impossible, yes. And yet, I think the only dream worth waking to.
I invite us to rise in body and or in spirit. With gratitude and thanksgiving to Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper for your powerful witness and testimony today. To Emma's Revolution, Rachel Moore, Jenny Lynn Moyer, Kevin Miller, Jasmin Lee, and Chris Morrow for your music ministry to us. Let us rise, keep rising as we keep on moving forward.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante.
Siempre adelante.
Siempre adelante.
Siempre adelante.
Siempre adelante.
Sin volver atrás.
Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gotta keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Haremos con pasión.
Siempre con pasión.
Siempre con pasión.
Siempre con pasión.
Siempre con pasión.
Sin volver atrás.
Sin volver atrás.
Sin volver atrás.
Sin volver atrás. Gotta reunite the family.
Reunite all the families.
Reunite the family.
siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás.
Gonna sow the seeds of justice.
Sow the seeds of justice. Sow the seeds of justice. Never turning back. Never turning back.
Sembremos la justicia.
Siempre la justicia.
Siempre la justicia.
Siempre la justicia. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás.
Gonna keep on moving forward.
Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. 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 Never turning back.